In business news tonight, Senior Minister and Deputy Minister of Finance Dr. Sarath Amunagama says that Sri Lanka's education system needs to allocate more time for science and technology if the country is to be developed as the knowledge hub of Asia. Now, the minister expressed these views at an international conference that commenced in Colombo yesterday.
The 2013 International Conference of the Southeast Asian Regional Computer Confederation commenced in Colombo yesterday. Speaking at the event, Senior Minister Dr. Sarath Amunagama noted that Sri Lanka has invested in education for over 60 years and that the results of this investment must begin to show at this point of time. He noted that in order to achieve this, the education system should be reformed to be more science and technology centric.
We must create a culture of science. We must reward people who go into science and technology. We must, most importantly, change our educational system so that we spend more and more in this very vital area of science and technology. I want to invite you to give all your proposals for the next budget.
Welcome back to the news. In more local news, a group that was arrested for attempting to make the illegal boat trip to Australia have been handed over to the Criminal Investigations Department. A Navy spokesperson, Commander Khosla Varnakulu said the group was handed over to the CID this morning.
The group of illegal migrants en route to Australia by boat were arrested by the Sri Lankan Navy on the night of the 11th, 220 kilometers south of the Gold Coast. The arrests were made by 2 Sri Lanka Navy patrol boats. The group was brought back to the Galle port last night. The Navy spokesperson added that the group comprised of 111 Sri Lankans, including 61 men, 11 women, 17 boys and 22 girls. The Navy spokesperson said that the arrested persons were originally from Jaffna, Vaunia, Batticaloa, Trincomalee, Puttlam and Colombo.
Well, News First reporter MEZ Shah Jahan filed this report from Negombo today.
The Periyamulla Ayurveda Hospital, which commenced in 1962 and which comes under the purview of the Negombo Municipal Council, is in a dilapidated state as it has been closed down since last year. Area residents request for a solution to this issue.
News First, you reporter Edwin, Negombo City, MEZ Shah Jahan.
But what does Sports First have in store for you this evening? Here's a look.
And once we picked up one wicket, the crowd really got behind us and started to lift, and I think the team really lifted with that.
The most difficult thing is that our preparation and training has been outstanding. At the moment, we're being outplayed.
Several opinions on the revision of bus fares. Private bus associations reject the increase of fares, urging the government to provide relief. Representatives from bus associations and the National Transport Commission convened a special media briefing on the revision of bus fares for 2013. The 3-member committee appointed to look into bus fare revisions convenes at the Ministry of Private Transport Services. Decision to revise bus fares taken yesterday. The Lanka Private Bus Owners Association says that bus fares will be increased by 10% from the 1st of September. If bus fares are increased without permission, permits will be cancelled. The National Transport Commission. Another burden on the people.
Well, on international news, here's a story that we've been closely following on the international desk. 26 Palestinian prisoners set for release in the early hours of tomorrow have been moved to a jail in central Israel. Now from there they will be taken to crossings in Gaza and the West Bank, with scheduled peace talks to commence hours later.
Now, however, in a move which has drawn criticism from UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, Israel this morning approved a further 900 illegal settlement homes in occupied East Jerusalem. Now, News First Alexander Holmes filed this report.
All 14 members of the UN Security Council, bar the United States, called for the immediate halt to settlement plans, warning they are threatening the possibility of a two-state solution with Palestine. A spokesman for Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, insisted the new settlement units were in areas that will remain part of Israel in any possible future agreement, adding that it changed nothing. The last round of talks in 2010 broke down on the issue of illegal settlements, which remain illegal under international law. However, the United States Secretary of State John Kerry said Sunday's announcement of the 1,200 proposed homes was to some degree expected, but stressed the US views all of the settlements as illegitimate.
As you know, or as the world I hope knows, the United States of America views all of the settlements as illegitimate. That is the policy of the United States. And we have communicated that policy very clearly to our friends in Israel.
Many political analysts also see the proposed building in the occupied East Jerusalem as expected. The planned release of 104 Palestinian prisoners, many of whom are convicted of murdering Israelis, has seen strong domestic opposition inside Israel. Its conservative government may see settlement as one way to quell the unrest and appease those conservatives. The past week's events seem very familiar. Concessions to get the talks going through the release of Palestinian prisoners by Israel, a vague understanding to halt or restrict building on Israeli settlements, and finally a very public announcement that construction will take place anyway. Let's hope that history doesn't repeat itself once again. Alexander Holmes, News First.
Well, thank you, Alex, for that comprehensive report. Meanwhile, in another development in the region, Israel's Iron Dome interceptor system for the first time successfully shot down a rocket aimed at its southern resort city of Eilat, which borders Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. Now, the rocket is said to have come from Islamists in the peninsula in retaliation for the killing of 4 of their guerrilla fighters.
Well, moving to international news from closer to home, India and Pakistan are continuing to trade accusations over alleged breaches along the disputed border in Kashmir. This morning, India accused Pakistan of firing on Indian posts in the Jammu region. News First Zulfiq Farzan reports.
Yesterday, Pakistan summoned India's Deputy High Commissioner saying a civilian had been killed on the border. This is the latest in a series of accusations and counter-accusations, with each side blaming the other for violations of the 2003 ceasefire. Last week, India accused the Pakistani army of killing 5 of its soldiers, something Pakistan denies. According to Indian media, Pakistani troops fired on India's posts in the Ramgarh sector in Samba district early this morning. Firing was also reported on Indian posts in Poonch district last night. Yesterday, Pakistan said that a male Pakistani civilian was killed when India fired on the common border early last morning. However, India offered a different version of events, saying that soldiers responded to shelling, but that no injuries were reported from the Indian side.
Now, News First Bureau correspondent from Delhi, Sarmista Sarkar, has more on the Indo-Pakistan tensions.
According to the latest news that's coming up, Jammu and Kashmir government today made a few arrests, which are the first arrests for the communal violence that's going on in Kashmir. And as you know, the violence began on last Friday, and the political blame game has also started with the state's ruling National Congress, the Bharatiya Janata Party, and the centre. At least 11 people have been arrested so far from Kishtwar area of Jammu, and 3 persons have been killed. 2 policemen were also reportedly arrested. Mr. Chidambaram said that the forces on ground were the best judge, and they're doing that what needs to be done, and for the moment, strict curfew needs to be maintained in the area. Sharmishta Sarkar, India.
Well, we start off sports news with good news for Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka emerged victorious in their first encounter in Division 2 of the Asian Junior Rugby Championships that is underway in Chinese Taipei. The Sri Lanka team led by Richard Dharmapal of Science College Mount Lavinia took on Thailand in their first encounter. The Lankans dominated the first half, scoring 19 points and allowed the Thais only 3 points. However, Thailand staged a strong comeback in the second half, scoring 17 points, but it was not enough to prevent a Lankan victory, as Sri Lanka managed to score 5 more points in the second half to win the match 24 points to 20. Moving back to some local rugby news, the 2 new players have been named for the Sevens rugby team that is to participate in the upcoming second Asian Youth Games. Incidentally, the step was taken after removing 2 other players who had even sat for the Youth Games contingent's official photograph with the Minister of Sports.
Last Friday, the National Olympic Committee released the Sevens rugby squad that would represent Sri Lanka at the second Asian Youth Games due to commence in China this Friday. On Sunday, on Sports' first special segment, The Bitter Truth, it was unveiled that sports authorities are attempting to replace 2 players in the squad. While this expose has now been affirmed, the head of the contingent, Olivia Gamage, confirmed to Sports First that the Sri Lanka Rugby Football Union had named 2 new players. Sports Minister Mahindanand Gamage said that the 2 new players were approved after a request made by the coach, who had claimed that 4 of Sri Lanka's best players did not make it to the team through the selection matches. However, the executive director of the SLRFU, Rohan Gunaratna, said that the 2 players were removed for injury and failure to attend training sessions. This afternoon, the director of school sports, B.A. Aberatna, said that he had not approved the 2 new players named in the squad. The team is to leave the island for China at dawn tomorrow.
Well, now moving on to some cricket news. A 6-wicket haul from Stuart Broad powered England to a 74-run win over Australia in their 4th Ashes Test at Durham, England, which handed the home team the series 3-0 with 1 match remaining.
He'll do his best to play exactly that way.
England had posted 238 runs in their first innings and 330 runs in their second innings. Australia, who were bowled out for 270 in their first innings, needed 299 for victory. The tourists appeared well on course for victory after David Warner and Chris Rogers put on a 109-run stand for the first wicket. However, English paceman Stuart Broad then sparked a collapse that saw 10 wickets tumble for 115 runs as Australia were eventually bowled out for 224 runs. Broad struck 6 times for the home team, while Tim Bresnan and Graham Swan bagged a brace each.
Oh, it was definitely adrenaline today. I mean, at the start of that little period, Brezzy and I sort of got together. I was feeling mid-off and said, come on, right, me and you can really put a squeeze on here. Let's build some pressure. And once we picked up 1 wicket, the crowd really got behind us and started to lift. And I think the team really lifted with that. And it also shows the difference that the ball moving can do. Once it was reversing, it didn't have to do a lot, but it just brings a little bit of doubt into the batsman. And once you have that doubt as a bowler, you're in the game.
Right now it's about allowing this to sink in. We've got some time, which is a positive for us. We've got another tour game. We've got plenty of time to train and keep working hard. The most difficult thing is that our preparation and training has been outstanding. I can't ask for anything more of the players in regards to preparation. At the moment, we're being outplayed.
But before we conclude the news, take a look at another local story. The National Movement for Social Justice convened a media briefing in Colombo today.
Well, speaking at this media briefing, the movement's national convener, Venerable Madhuluabe Sobitathera, expressed the following views.
Today, the scramble for preferential votes in the northwest is being exhibited. Money and liquor is flowing. They are fighting, claiming the position of Chief Minister. The Elections Commission must act. If a fair election is to be held in the country, then we request that the police completely hand over powers to the Elections Commissioner. The Elections Commissioner must have the power to enforce the law against those who violate election laws. The Elections Commissioner is now a despondent individual who has none of these powers. In the end, the Elections Commissioner will also contract the disease of disillusionment. He will announce the results and say that he is disillusioned. The situation is becoming worse. After this, the media will not be allowed to go anywhere and cover anything. The media will be subject to severe suppression. It appears that like people in Ratupaswala were killed, the media too is facing death. Oppression is everywhere. No one will be able to even open their mouths.
And
that's today's edition of Primetime News. As always, it's a pleasure having you with us. For News First, I'm Shine Rampati.
And I'm Mahina Bongzo. Good night.
News First at 9.
Hotline
0114-896-896. www.newsfirst.lk. Feedback at newsfirst.lk.